So, in the first 2 decades of this new millennium, we have already been besieged by two separate financial crises, resulting in staggering losses in the capital markets. Do we now finally know better? Are we now beyond the excesses of our history? To dissect this topic, we need to enter into a time machine and live the words of George Santayana. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Our tale begins in 1602 Anno Domini. The Dutch East India Company is founded and is the first modern public corporation. Like Prometheus, who tricked the gods to giving the power of fire to mankind, the public corporation democratized the power of capital long held by kings and nation states, and gave that power to us, mere mortals. This invention led the Western world to rule the globe for the next 400 years and produce the highest standards of living in the world, raising capital for voyages to the East for spices and treasure. Public corporations became the vessel to fund a world domination. At the height of its power, the Dutch East India Corporation was worth $8 trillion, 7 times the size of Apple. 1636, with the abundant wealth, the Dutch population enters into a speculative frenzy on the price of tulip bulbs. At its zenith, an entire estate in Amsterdam could be had for a single rare tulip bulb. The bursting of this tulip bubble sends the Dutch economy into a severe recession. 1664, the British East India Corporation begins to export textiles from India. The egalitarian nature of the shareholder list included such professions as tanners and blacksmiths. The wealth creation allowed England to dominate the world and its citizens to experience lifestyles unheard of. The success of the British East India Corporation leads to a gold rush for companies exploring voyages. In 1720, the South Sea Corporation creates a speculative mania of leverage that leads to its collapse and the first large-scale bailout of a corporation by government. Even Sir Isaac Newton was not immune to the gravitational pull of greed, later stating, "I can calculate the motions of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of men." 1840, the U.S. Industrial Revolution. Capital markets fund the building of railroads that connect the world, oil that powers it. The food industry extinguishes hunger, and the light bulb turns darkness to light. 1907, a San Francisco earthquake is the spark, and leveraged trust companies are the tinder that lead to a near collapse in the financial markets. 1929, investors borrowing 10 to 1 and highly leveraged mutual funds lead to a speculative bubble whose market crash sets off a chain of events causing thousands of banks to fail, unemployment and GDP losses at 25%, and a stock market that does not return to its 1929 level for 24 years. The 20th century. Corporations democratize the automobile, airliners, computers, the internet. Wealth explodes to a level to which the average U.S. income exceeds the top 1% of world income. 2008, unfathomable levels of homeowner and Wall Street leverage nearly collapse the global financial system, necessitating trillions of dollars of worldwide bailouts. So what will be the next panic? Are you prepared? The market system has advanced civilization and created wealth beyond our wildest dreams, yet we continually fall into hysterias and market bubbles. What is it about the human condition that leads to such excesses? Haven't we learned from our mistakes? Do we finally now know better? It was Mark Twain that said, "The human race's character is permanent and never changes." Throughout human history, we have always believed we were at the precipice of change and that we were past such silly excesses. In 1990, John Kenneth Galbraith wrote the classic, A Short History of Financial Euphoria, Financial Geniuses Before the Fall. We as humans thought by that time we knew better. Well, they also believed that in 1841, when Charles Mackay wrote Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. There is a primordial force that causes humans to suffer from hindsight bias. We believe that we are smarter now and that we would have never bought stock with only 10% down in 1929 or traded a tulip bulb for a home in Amsterdam. So today, are we finally past this human condition that allows greed and fear to override our sense of logic? Well, not if you go to a toilet paper aisle in 2020. The contagious nature of fear and greed are embedded in the human condition and therefore ever present in the financial markets, which are a short-term reflection of mass psychology. When you're fearful, loss aversion kicks in. That emergency switch in your brain is your base survival instinct. Now, this may have been critical for Homo erectus when they were avoiding saber-toothed tigers, but today that switch manifests itself into poor decision-making during economic volatility, financial markets. And on the flip side, greed is a contagious animal in its own right. When you're on the sidelines and people are making money year after year in some new thought-up scheme, don't be a coward, they'll say. You have to take chances. Your significant other will say, you've lost your touch. In 1949, when the California gold rush began, people across the country paid attention. By 1951, they felt they were missing out. And by 1952, they thought we are the dumbest people in America for not getting in on this easy money. In fact, many doctors even quit practicing medicine in the northeastern United States to cross the country to pan for gold. Unfortunately, by that point, every rock had been turned over and their perilous journey was a failure. You see this sign, 35 days to gold regions by steamship for $90. The boat has 200 jackasses. In hindsight, there were probably more than 200 jackasses aboard that ship. These primordial instincts are why, despite the enormous wealth creation, markets will overreach to excess and plummet to pain. Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter said, economic progress in capitalist society means turmoil. And that was not stated as a pejorative, but as an essential truth. Let's look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Now, it started the century at 68 and now sits at nearly 30,000. Now, this sounds like you can just put your money in an index and sit back and catch up on your Netflix. But unfortunately, no one has a 120-year time horizon. So let's look at that ride that looks so wonderful a little closer. 67 out of 120 years were periods of long-term flat markets. Long-term flat markets for 67 out of 120 years. In fact, prices have fallen 50% for the first 2 decades of the 21st century. How would our internal fear and greed programming affect our decision-making in these very common historical periods? For most, pleasure causes your internal barometer to go haywire, and we succumb to cognitive errors of loss aversion and make costly decisions. All of this history leads us to a fundamental truth. The only thing that can be expected in the short run is the unexpected. When you accept the permanent nature of humankind, you accept the natural vicissitudes in the securities markets and the world. Only upon this acceptance do you regain control over your financial life. Now, you may not be able to avoid the feeling of unease as markets plummet or as others around you get rich off of quick buck schemes, but as Peter O'Toole and Lawrence of Arabia said, well, certainly it hurts. The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts. Now, we have no control over the short-term vagaries of the financial markets and the excesses of human nature, but there are areas where we do have significant control. You may have 1 or 2 investment portfolios, but there are multiple purposes for your money. How much is needed in your 3-year emergency fund that should be in an ultra-safe cash and short-term treasuries? Is it capital for retirement in 10 years? Or is it funds to cover the later stretch of retirements 20 years from now? Then, is there money for inheritance or charity that may be even beyond your lifetime? Um, with that type of money, you can withstand more volatility and the ability to ride the ups and downs of the market cycles. Money should be separated into buckets and invested as per the purpose and the time horizon of each of your goals, not based on your age and a few generic questions about risk. These mental buckets have also proven to keep investors from falling prey to the emotions of fear and greed during both market crashes and market euphoria. Developing a plan, you also have control over who helps you manage your money and helps determine your allocations to various asset classes and what you are paying in total fees. If I asked anyone here today how much they paid in total investment fees in US dollars last year, it is doubtful one out of 100 knows this amount in dollars. In fact, most are not even cognizant of the hidden layers of fees they are paying aside from their financial advisor. Fees on investment assets can be the largest expense of your lifetime. Again, it's possibly the largest expense of your lifetime, and nobody knows what they are paying. So, like the Wizard of Oz, the financial services industry has put up a curtain, hiding the layers of fees and using incalculable percentages to which no one knows how many dollars a month they're paying and what is the performance that they're achieving relative to those significant costs. To display the magnitude of this expense, if you have $1 million today and decide to invest that money, if you're able to reduce your fees from 2% to 1% over 20 years, you save $1 million, 100% of your starting principal, your entire life savings. We know from today's history lesson that the next crisis is inevitable. What we don't know is what will cause it, and we can't predict it, whether the spark is an earthquake, a stock market, or a pandemic. The tinder of over-leveraged companies and investment strategies that have traded short-term profits for their long-term solvency will be the tinder that turns a rare event into a full-blown financial crisis. Recognition of the incredible long-term wealth creation in the capital markets and instituting processes to protect yourself during the inevitable market crises can help you to survive and thrive during the next financial crisis. Will you be ready? Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Please, any questions or feedback, I got my email address here, and thanks for your time today.